3. Just last year, after a year as a teaching fellow back at Harvard, I went on another journey. And this time I bought a car in Boston, and together with my little doggy, Nomi, who we were all invited to Jerusalem to see, we traveled 13,000 miles all across America through 32 states. And it was this amazing experience because I got to sample all these various different kinds of lifestyles. I slept in trailer parks outside of Detroit, and farms in Iowa, and Katrina-stricken houses in New Orleans, and apartments with like 3 illegal Salvadorian immigrant families in New Mexico, and the bottom of the Grand Canyon, and these huge seaside mansions in Orange County, and blah, 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 and it was great. And throughout this trip, everywhere I went, I took my Bible, which was the USA Lonely Planet, and I would follow it to all the cultural things to do around town. But whenever I was going to pass through a town which was the hometown of one of my friends or former students, I would email them, and I would ask them to prepare a little itinerary for me so that I could experience the town as they saw it, through their eyes. So, for example, when I passed through Pittsburgh, I emailed my dear friend Kat, and I could have gone with following the Lonely Planet. I could have gone to the local art museum and monuments and university campuses, but instead I emailed her, and she sent me a very detailed itinerary. So I went to the diner where she used to go when she skipped school, and I went to meet the friendly flavored ice guy in the park, and to the porch where she first kissed Andrew Thurman Jr. in 7th grade, and to the beautiful marble water fountain on the 2nd floor of the public library. And it was really great because I cared about her, and I was experiencing her Pittsburgh. And it dawned on me that there was something very powerful about seeing places through the eyes of people who you care about. So then, when I finished my journey, I uploaded my own travels, my own muses, as we call them, which are images, clips, video, audio, text, and so on and so forth, onto MUSETREK, so that all my friends going around the world could now experience my own travels once they arrived at these places. So all these experiences inspired me to create, work on, and develop MUSETREK, which began in a class called the Idea Translation Lab at Harvard, which I took when I was a senior. And essentially MUSETREK began, as its name suggests, as a museum product. And you know how you can go into museums and get the audio guide. And typically it's someone with a fake British accent and a PhD in art history who tells you all about the linear perspective, or about the first Impressionist exhibit in Paris, and stuff like that. And for people like my mom, that is exactly the kind of cultural experience she wants. She wants people who society have deemed as experts to tell her what to see and how to interpret it. But from my own experiences, and from looking at data on museum visitation, we noticed that actually there was a growing young demographic whose needs weren't being met. A growing young demographic who found this traditional way of experiencing art somewhat of a snoozer. So in a world defined by YouTube and Twitter, Facebook, Yelp, forgetting some other venues, the search for trusted sources of information has shifted. People we saw in a series of experiments we ran in Boston and Cambridge museums were less interested in what experts had to say about the art, and more interested in what their friends and peers and social network had to say about things. And I am very glad that some of the previous speakers took a slight look at their notes, because I would like to do that as well. So, okay. So what we decided to do was, we thought, how cool would it be if we could create a platform that would allow users to upload their thoughts and comments about the art, to attach audio and video, songs, link to YouTube clips, and then share it with their social network, with their friends, or with the general public, or people with similar interests. And that way, when people go to museums, they can go in the footsteps of their friends, see what they thought about the art, their experiences, and receive personally tailored information. So if you're an 11-year-old girl who loves ballet or a 40-year-old man with a passion for peanut butter, you're receiving content which is actually relevant to your own experience. Essentially what we were trying to do is we were trying to accomplish two distinct goals. The first one was to deliver content that was relevant to people's own experience, and the second one was to democratize interpretation. And to continue the Wikipedia revolution, we tried to help dismantle the monopoly on interpretation or on knowledge that was held by museum curators or by the establishment, and essentially create a platform that would allow anyone who had anything to say about art do so. In a nutshell, that's what MUSETREK's core idea and mission was. And that was the starting point for a long process. And like any startup company, our translation path has been full of surprises, unexpected twists and turns, disappointments. You know, every time we read about the many millions of users that Foursquare has is a joyous moment at MUSETREK. But also triumphs, and we were really lucky in that about a year after we began working on this project, the Louvre in Paris expressed an interest in experimenting with our concept. And we were really surprised because we always saw them as a bastion of conservative art interpretation, but even they saw that that was the direction towards which the world was marching, and once we put in place some official content areas on our platform, they agreed to pick 50 paintings, and we uploaded them to our platform and sent them to a couple hundred Trek writers. And we didn't give them any guidelines, and we were just very eager to see what we would get back. And what we did get back was a total validation of our idea. People were funny and imaginative and creative, and they authored treks that were about 1 million times, at least to me, more interesting than our good old linear perspective guide. So we had, you know, neuroscientists from Ivy Leagues write about optical illusions, and we had my sister who looked at all these paintings of you know, Mary's holding baby Jesuses, and she's in her mid-30s and not yet a mom, so she wrote a trek about how our mom calls her 10 times a day to suggest prospective husbands. And my favorite was one that was written by this teenager from Boston who looked at all this Renaissance art, and it reminded him of pop icon images, so he attached them. So things like this. So we opened the Louvre for 4 consecutive free Friday nights, and people came in and collected iPhones that were donated by France Telecom and could walk around with these treks along the galleries. And at the end, they could also add their own treks. And the more they used the system in some Pandora-like way, the more the system, the algorithm, you know, knew who they were and suggested treks that were of greater and greater relevance to their interests. And the experiment was a great success, and we learned a lot from it. We got a ton of useful feedback. And that's when we had this, you know, pivotal moment in MUSETREK where it dawned on us that actually our idea wasn't limited to the museum space, that this could happen anywhere. This could happen in cities, in neighborhoods, on roads, and parks, and university campuses, indoors and outdoors. And all over the world, people could start attaching content to physical locations and sharing it out with their social network or with the world. So in a future MUSETREK world, when you come off the train in Helsinki, for example, you'll whip out your smartphone, and you will immediately receive content which is relevant to your own experience, which is created by your friends or by people with similar interests, where you'll see where your friends snapped cool photos or took a funny clip or something like that. And this has been the direction that MUSETREK has taken in the past 2 years. And just before closing, I want to give you a little taste of the kinds of ways in which MUSETREK is being used at the moment. And before I do that, because I forgot, we started off as a group of students, including my co-founder and best friend since grade school, who is actually probably one of the only people in this room who's actually from Be'er Sheva, who's right there, Roy Gilron. And we started this together, and it's since grown to our group. Now, our staff now includes programmers and designers and museum curators and an entrepreneurial CEO and projects, albeit very small projects, on 4 different continents. And some of the ways in which MUSETREK is being used now capture some of what we hope to accomplish when we set off with this project, which are projects that have real social impact. Those are some of our partners. The Art Science Project is an international competition which encourages teenagers to innovate and come up with innovative ideas around an annual theme. This year's theme is the future of water. So we have hundreds of kids from the States, from Ireland, France, Ellie help me, Singapore, even Saudi Arabia, all creating muses about their innovations and sharing it with their peers on MUSETREK. Another project ventured into not so great neighborhoods in Boston, where we got local residents, neighborhood boards, teenagers to come together and think about how they want to rethink or reinvent the image of their neighborhood vis-a-vis outsiders. And they all told us that this was an extremely empowering tool for them because they got to really think of who they would like to be and how they would like to present their neighborhood. And lastly, and perhaps most relevant to this part of the world, is a collaboration that we have with a fabulous group called MEET, which is an MIT initiative to bring Israelis and Palestinians together to study computer science. And this year, all of the MEET kids who can't actually go visit each other's home because of the geopolitical situation are all creating treks and muses around their villages and neighborhoods, and thereby using MUSETREK as sort of a bridge to building lasting social ties. So little did I know when I picked up that copy of Dan Brown's Angels and Demons what an impact this was going to have on my life. And it has been, for me, it's been and continues to be a really eye-opening experience. And I hope that you all join us in trying to spread the word of user-generated cultural travel, of democratized interpretation, and of content that is created for people and to be consumed by them. So thanks very much.